Today we will be working on file type HTML inputs. Input type file is an input with purpose of selecting a file on our device before the form data is uploaded. File type inputs show if a file has been selected but do not show previews of the file selected. Our aim is making an image preview for a file input. Start by creating an HTML index file. The file has content of an HTML structure. Removing any default padding and margin on body, also limiting the size of the image with CSS to avoid an overflow. No need to scroll on this. Also create a class to hide the input element. With the input element hidden, we have to make sure the onClick event is triggered upon clicking on the image. But first we need to get the image and the input element. The toggle input function is triggered by clicking on the image element and in turn triggers the input element's onClick event. We all know an input element has a value attribute. Why not just use the content of this attribute? Well, I'm going to console the content of the value attribute of the input after selecting an image. As seen, the URL of the image is not true. I'm not even sure that URL exists on my device. Let me try using that URL in the source attribute for the image. There's an error and I'm not shocked at all. The URL was not true, but it doesn't mean the input didn't get the image. The input has an attribute files containing a list of files selected. Creating a function that takes in the input element as attribute and is triggered after the user selects a file. Before that, I'd like you to take a look at the file list on the console. There's the file list with the selected file being the first content of the array. We sure cannot pass the file into the source attribute of the image element, but if we can get the base 64 string of the image, then we can pass the string. How do we that? Using a file reader object. Within the file reader onload and the base 64 data variable contains the base 64 data of the image. Here is the base64 string. The process function is not made to handle situations where no file is selected, and hence an error occurs when this happens.